these interviews or these recorded phone conversations between Duncan Baird, the person who was at the Capitol that night in question, and Dennis Milligan. They've been made available. I still haven't gotten to listen to them yet. I'm reading some transcripts. And had I had this information, the interview you just heard would have gone a little differently, I think. Not that I have any conclusion yet, but there will be more to come from everything we've talked about this hour. Nic Horton will shed some more light on this when we come back. You don't want to miss the next hour, especially the next segment. Back in a minute.
We will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.
The Paul Harrell Program on the Answer to Us Network.
Hey, folks, welcome. Paul Harrell here. Congratulations. You found the show that reminds politicians they answer to us, we the people of the United States. Joining us now from the ArkansasProject.com, Nic Horton. Thanks for being with us, sir.
Hey, it's great to be with you, Paul. I'm taking a huge career risk and potentially a life risk here. I'm coming to you live from the middle of Little Rock rush hour traffic. So
wow.
I'm trying to navigate my way home and do a live radio interview. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I hope. Man, I tried. The one time I did your podcast, I was driving the whole time I did that, and I just felt like I couldn't think. I couldn't maintain my thoughts at all. So if you can do this, you are a talented, more talented
well,
than me.
See.
Okay,
well, let's do it.
Nick, I just interviewed last segment, the long segment, candidate for treasurer, Republican Dennis Milligan. He's now in the news because of some emails that surfaced and came out from the chief of police, the Capitol Police, Darrell Hedden. And in these emails, it's apparent that it was reported that Duncan Baird, who is his opponent, Dennis Milligan's opponent, Davy Carter, John Burris, and some others were up at the Capitol late one night, that they seemed, quote, unsteady, which is another word for saying that at least someone was possibly intoxicated, because the full quote is possibly unsteady. So I just had Dennis Milligan on, and the whole time, forgive me for saying this, I know it might not have seemed like it, I thought I had a bead on the story. I thought I knew where I stood on the story. But at 3:57 today, there was a new development to the story that I wasn't privy to. So I conducted the entire interview blind, and because my show starts at 4, and so there's new information out, and now I kind of figure out why I think the interview was a little funny, because some of these quotes. The headline from the Arkansas Times blog: the Duncan Baird Dennis Milligan saga continues. Milligan doubles down. Baird produces recordings of conversation, and some of these quotes from this conversation don't necessarily seem to be the way maybe Dennis Milligan was describing them to me in the last segment. Now, have you seen some of these comments, and have you listened to the video yet that was released?
I have seen the story. I skimmed some of the remarks and the quotes. The most interesting ones to me, I went then and tried to find them in the audio files and listened to them to make sure, I will say the Arkansas Times is sort of notorious for taking things out of context or misrepresenting comments. So I wanted to verify that for myself. But yeah, some of the more interesting, more poignant remarks, I definitely looked at and went and referenced them in the audio for myself.
Do you recall, do you recall what some of those quotes are? And can you, I see this one. Here's the bottom line. You're finding a new career. You're not going to run for state treasurer, okay? Unless you want to see this on the 7 o'clock news. Is that actually what Dennis Milligan said in that conversation that you heard?
That's what I heard. That's what I heard in the audio clip. I listened to it a few times. I heard Dennis Milligan tell Duncan Baird, essentially, or not essentially, I heard him tell Duncan Baird, you're not running for state treasurer. Now, I guess we can have a debate, about what that means, whether or not that constitutes some sort of blackmail. I think we could all probably agree that that constitutes some level of pressure that is being placed there by Mr. Milligan on Duncan, or on Representative Baird, I should say. I don't know. legally, I don't know really what that amounts to or what you can really make of that. I think politically, it's not good because Mr. Milligan is now out saying that he did not pressure Mr. Baird and that he did not say anything about him wanting him to get out of the race or anything like that. Now, I heard an interesting revision even of that remark when Mr. Milligan was on the Dave Ellswick show down here in Little Rock today, and I was able to tune in and hear part of that interview. And what he told Dave Ellswick was, well, I didn't tell Duncan that I wanted him to get out of the race, but I told Duncan that there were people that wanted him to get out of the race. So we're sort of in like this word game, and I'm not even really sure after hearing the audio, I don't even really think that that's true. I mean, what he said was, you're getting out of the race. You're not running for state treasurer. So, you could kind of compare it, Paul, to like back in the day when a mobster or a member of the mafia would like walk into a restaurant and say, well, this is a really nice place you have here. It would really be a shame if something happened to it and it burned to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like that. It's this veiled thing where, it's hard to even really call it a threat because it's not actually a threat in as many words, but there's sort of an implication there. And Mr. Milligan went on to say, you're getting out of the race unless you want to see this on the 7 o'clock news. So it was sort of presented as, if you still decide to run, this is going to be an issue and this is going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it's presented in the audio, and I think that the transcript there and the way that they were transcribed by the Arkansas Times, best I could tell, was correct.
Look, I mean, I really feel like I need to apologize to my audience, Nick, because I just want them to know, had I had this information that's in front of me now that was posted right when we came on the air, the interview would have gone a little differently. It wouldn't have been as lighthearted, and there would have been some questions specifically about these quotes.
Sure.
Sure. I'll also say this, though. These emails don't exactly, they don't tell who specifically was possibly intoxicated or possibly unsteady. It doesn't say specifically who talked to a police officer in a negative way saying, hey, I'm going to tell the Secretary of State on you, and, who knows, and who even knows how that was said. I mean, it was enough to be put in an email from the police, so they at least thought it was significant to alert Secretary of State Mark Martin's office. Do you see that there is an issue here, though? I mean, potentially being at the Capitol at this time? I know Duncan Baird has raised the issue that it was during the special session, but Dennis Milligan said that it wasn't the night of the midnight session. What do you think?
Well, and I think that's technically correct. It was, I believe, the night before the midnight session. But, I mean, if Dennis Milligan or whoever thinks that these legislators are guilty of some sort of wrongdoing just because they were in the Capitol, physically in the Capitol at some hour that Dennis Milligan or whoever thinks is inappropriate, I guess I just don't buy that. I mean, there's no evidence in the video that I can see of any wrongdoing. Mr. Milligan has tried to make a big issue out of the fact that there were some women there, and at least to his knowledge, neither of those women were married to any of the legislators. But again, I mean, just physically being in a room with someone is not necessarily, I mean, that doesn't mean you did something wrong. So I definitely think it's a stretch. I mean, you look at the video, 24 hours later, there were 135 legislators that were in the Capitol after midnight. So, I mean, are they all guilty of some sort of impropriety because they were all at the Capitol late at night? I mean, Paul, I have a media pass. I can go into the Capitol at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or any time of the day, any day of the week if I want to.
Really?
Because physically being there, yeah, but physically being there doesn't mean that I've done something wrong.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Can you get me up to the roof?
No promises. We'll have to talk to the Capitol Police.
I mean, I specifically...
But we don't want to be caught on video, Paul. It might end our careers.